Hi guys, it's Rob from Royal Balls. Got a bit of an update for you today on the Terranium. This little guy is actually shed, so I had to clean him out and we'll take a look at that. But I actually dug him out to take a look at him because I haven't actually seen him for quite some time. Now this series is actually developed into a little more than just making a terranium work, if that's how you want to keep your baby ball python. I think we've achieved that. This guy is actually thriving, but for me the interest lies in what's actually best for your ball python. What does a ball python prefer to live in, a terranium or a tub? What's best for the owner in terms of what you actually get out of your pet ball python? So we're going to take a look. Alright guys, it's time for a terranium update, and I haven't seen the little fellow in here in weeks. I come down at odd times of the night, I look at it several times during the day, and this guy has not used any of this space up here. He doesn't come out at all. I added another modification to the base here. You will see that I added a strip of paper to the front to see if I could encourage him to actually at least come out and use the bottom part of the terranium, never mind the top part, but I haven't seen him. We need to check on him. I know he's shed because I can see a shed inside one of the hides, but this little fella just does not come out. So let's clean him out. I'll show you that on video, and we'll take a look at this little guy and we'll see how much he's grown. He does come out and eat when I feed him, but that's about the only time that I see him. Let's take a look. So I can still get into the terranium even with the paper on here, and there he is. Look at that, he's peeking out of the hide. He's in the hide down here and he's peeking out. Now he has been moving backwards and forwards between the two hides, but that's about the only movement that he's made. And I'm assuming that since he's shed he has pooed, so we're going to have to clean him out anyway. So let's just shift some of this shrubbery, get this out of the way. We can always put that back easily afterwards. And can you guys see down there? Let me see if I can just zoom in here. You can see in the entrance to this hide down here, over here, that there is a shed. So I know he's shed. So let's just zoom back out again. We'll take this out. You can see what a pain it is already to actually clean out this terranium. Let's remove the water bowl because we can refresh his water. Now there's no poo down here. There's no poo in here. The snake itself is in here. So I need to remove this hide so I can get this hide out and have a look inside there where the shed is. So what I'm going to do is to put our little baby snake inside this tub. I know when I open this hide here he's going to have a hissy fit. So one thing that I've noticed with my terranium, obviously none of our snakes need to come out in search of food, so unless I starve him he's not going to come out and search for food. You guys living in more temperate climates are of course using heat mats, and I don't use heat mats. Everything is ambient. This is a tropical snake living in a tropical climate. The temperature throughout the terranium is perfect for him. He doesn't have to seek out a heat mat to warm up, and he doesn't have to move out away from the hotspot to cool down. So he doesn't. My snake moves between the two hides and does not climb at all. Of course, if I was to put a heat mat underneath his hide here, he would go into the hide and warm up, get too steamy, move out, go up to his sky hotel to cool down, and then climb back down again to warm up in the hide. So a lot of the behaviour that I suspect that you guys are seeing in your terrariums is actually driven by a very unnatural condition of having a heat mat and a cool side. My snake doesn't have that. It doesn't need to thermal regulate seeking out a hot spot and then cooling off. It just sits in its hide and does nothing. I could probably put a heat mat underneath his hide here and it would drive him out periodically to climb the tree, go into his sky hide, cool off, and then he would come back down again. But my snake simply doesn't do that. He doesn't need to, so he doesn't move. So I suspect that a lot of the snake behaviour that we're seeing in our terrariums depends very, very much on how you set it up with your heat mat. Your snake is going to move on and off the heat mat. My snake does not have to move on and off a heat mat, so he doesn't move at all. Isn't that strange? So all this behaviour that you see when the guy is moving around in his terrarium, just have a look at your terrarium setups and see where you've got the hot spot. My guess is that if you were using ambient temperature like I am, the snake would move around a lot less than it does. My snake doesn't move because everywhere in this terrarium is the right temperature for him. He's comfortable wherever he goes, so he doesn't go anywhere. I've put all the decorations back in the terrarium now. All the trees are back in here, and I've put the hides back in, and I've refreshed the water. So quite a considerable exercise to keep the snake in this terrarium and to keep it clean. It would have been a 2-minute job to clean a tub, but it's a 15-20 minute job to pull all this vegetation out, pull the hides out, refresh the water, put everything back in. So it's quite labour intensive, and to be honest, because I've had to put all this blanking off the sides and the top and the back, and I've blanked off the base, I have effectively got an enriched tub in the base here, most of which he doesn't use, and then I've got all this terranium stuff at the top with all this enrichment stuff that is all wasted. He never uses it. I've never seen him in there at night. I've never seen him up there during the day. I come down at irregular intervals during the night and I check to see where he is, and he's in his hide. Come down during the day, he's in his hide. He never uses this upper part of the terrarium at all, except for that initial couple of days when he was trying to escape. So the terrarium's all refreshed, it's looking great, so I can put this back onto the shelf, and let's take a look at this little guy, because he's grown tremendously. So here he is, sitting in his tub, and he has actually grown tremendously. Now, because I haven't seen him for weeks, I haven't touched him since he's been in the terrarium, I've done no socialization at all with this snake. He has not been touched at all. But my experience with hatchlings is that once they start to grow and take a few meals, which this guy has, they actually mellow out all by themselves, regardless of any interaction that you have with them. So socializing, this snake is already socialized. Watch this. I can already pick this guy up. He's not striking, he's not biting. He is a little bit timid. He's not accustomed to being handled, obviously. But if I just calmly hold this snake, he will relax and he'll do what ball pythons do. He'll stick his head out, start to tongue flick, start to move around, start to explore. This guy is not freaking out. You can see he is panting. So he's not completely at ease. So we put him down. And what I want to do is to actually compare him to his siblings in tubs. Here is one of his siblings from a tub. And actually, this guy in the tub is a little bit less nervous than this guy from the terrarium. This guy is more used to being out in the open. But you can see that they've been fed the same and they've grown exactly the same. These are both from the same clutch, they're both from exactly the same age. This is an Orange Dream Calico and this is a normal guy here. And if anything, this guy in the tub, when I pick him up, if anything, he's actually less nervous than the guy in the Terranium, which is exactly what I would have expected actually. The guy in the Terranium has not had any interaction whatsoever. The guy in the tub has had a little bit of interaction with me when I feed him. This guy is used to being a little bit exposed, and this guy in the Terranium, despite my disappointment at not seeing him using any of the enrichment or exercise opportunities that I've provided him with, is actually behaving exactly as I would expect a ball python to behave. In that Terranium with plenty of hiding spaces, he finds a hiding space and disappears, and I don't see him for weeks, and I think that is perfectly natural behaviour. So I'll leave that to you guys to determine. These are siblings. They've grown exactly the same. They both look perfectly happy and healthy. This guy I see every day because he's in a tub. This guy I don't see for weeks at a time because he's in the Terranium. But I can't actually see any difference between the two. Can you guys? Let me show you again. Let me pick the two of them up to see whether there's actually any difference in their response when I pick them up. So here they both are. And I can see that they're both nervous. Exactly the same. But neither of them is panic-stricken, provided that I move sensibly. So I don't believe that there's any difference between the Terranium setup and the tub setup, or any difference between this guy that has been handled much more regularly and this guy which I haven't seen for weeks. I don't see any difference at all in these two snakes. They're just typical baby ball pythons. Absolutely no difference in health, size, behaviour. This guy in a tub, this guy in a Terranium. Is that a good comparison? Now, I do have some ideas for this guy in the Terranium. He's obviously thriving, and we will continue to compare him with his siblings. I have experimented, believe it or not, with a little bit of UVB light. I put a UVB light, a little UVB light out for him to see if I can tempt him out to sunbathe. Doesn't use it. That just sits in his hide, couldn't care less. So I'm going to make some modifications to the Terranium to offer him some other, what I feel is possibly more beneficial opportunities to select between his different environments. Obviously he's not climbing, he's not using the sky hide. I'm going to give him some other opportunities. I'm not going to completely remove all the climbing opportunities because I still want to see this guy climb. Even though he's been in the Terranium now for a month and hasn't climbed once since the first few days we introduced him, I still want to see whether he will or not, because I just think it's cool. I want to see him climb. But I'm not going to force him. As I said, I'm not handling this guy at all. It's completely his choice what he does in the Terranium, and his choice is to disappear for weeks on end. Alright, let me put these guys back. I'll put this guy back in the Terranium, and I'll put this guy here back in his tub. But I think you can see the comparison. They're actually identical. Alright guys, thanks for watching. We're not giving up yet. This guy's gone back into the Terranium, and I do have some more ideas on what I can do to give him perhaps an environment which he will use, because we haven't seen him use any of the climbing opportunities in the Terranium. So I'm going to make some changes and I'll bring you along for the ride. So let's continue this experiment of trying to find out what the snake actually prefers and what the implications are for us as keepers. I hope you found that interesting, comparing it to his siblings in tubs, and I couldn't honestly see any difference at all between the two. They've been fed the same. They've grown the same, they look exactly the same. This guy in here is possibly slightly more twitchy than the guys that are over here in tubs that are more accustomed to being kept in the open. But as far as ball pythons being nervous unless you handle them, I think you can see that that isn't actually the case. As they get older, they do become a little less twitchy, and certainly that's reflected in those two ball pythons you saw today. Both the ones in the tub and the hatchling from the Terranium were not particularly nervous, a little bit nervous, a little bit of huffing, but they quickly relaxed, and no really negative signs from either of those snakes from not being regularly handled. Even the guy in the tub only gets handled when he's cleaned out. I perhaps put him on the table and let him have a little crawl around, but this guy here hasn't been handled at all, and I think you can see that that hasn't really made any difference to the snake at all. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Jump down in the comments below. Again, I'm expecting some lively discussion on the implications of the Terranium and some of my findings. The major difference being that I'm using ambient as opposed to heat mats, and I think I'm starting to see that that actually does have a significant impact on the way that your snake behaves, depending upon how you have your Terranium set up. So we'll see you next time.